Hello again and welcome to PRTC. Today we are going to teach you something you may have not known about something right here in your own backyard. I'm here with Mr. Travis Sparks just north of McKee on Sand Lick Road. We came down Model A Drive behind us here into a little place called Oakwood Acres, and our cameraman Eric Wiggs is going to be giving you some video footage of this area here. And Travis, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe things you did for a living and where you're from and the travels you took in life.
Okay, I was born and raised here in this area, and I went through school, of course, here in the county. When I started school, one-room school, grades 1 through 8, and one teacher, and usually about 25 or 30 kids. And at that time, there was about 75 one-room schools here in Jackson County, all of them pretty much alike. And I might tell you this about the schools. We didn't even have an outhouse, let alone indoor plumbing. The rules was, most of the schools, you girls go out the road in this direction, you boys go out the road in this direction. And that's the way it was back till I was in high school at McKee. And down there, we had a toilet behind the building, over the branch. Those school buildings set between the Reformed Church and the gymnasium. And we had one for the boys and one for the girls. And each one of them had about 5 holes, no partition between them. Now, you didn't have too much privacy that way, but I guess at the same time you didn't get lonesome either. Well, within in 1938, when I was a sophomore, the WPA had just finished the old stone building up on the hill there at McKee. So I went my sophomore and senior year and graduated from the old stone building. And we got up there, we hadn't only moved up on the hill, but we'd moved up in other ways. Well, we had drinking fountains along the hall and indoor toilets and all that, and we was like the Jeffersons. We'd moved on up. And then after I graduated from high school, I worked in McKee for Lloyd Sparks' general store for 1 year. Well, I worked part-time while I was in high school, after school, on Saturdays. And then I worked one year full-time after I graduated. At that time, 1941, there's a lot of the young men going to Dayton, Ohio, Chicago, or Detroit, and, Richmond, Indiana, and getting jobs. And so they'd come back and tell about what good jobs they had and all the money they was making. And at that time, men were working here in this area for 75 cents and $1 a day. Now, not an hour, but a day. So I thought, I believe I'll go and seek my fortune. So I took off and went to Dayton, Ohio. I thought, if I get a job, I may stay and work a couple of years. Well, I got up there and got a job, and I ended up staying up there 45 years. I worked 42 years for General Motors Corporation in one of the component plants where they made parts for the new car assembly lines. And then I retired at the end of 1986 and come back from old stomping ground, so to speak. And my wife and I traveled around a little bit over the country the first couple of years after I retired. And spent a little time in Florida in winters. And then she passed away in 1990. And I gave up the idea of traveling, one thing and another, and I thought, well, I think just for a hobby, I believe I'll start building things like they were when I was a boy. Well, I started this, but I never dreamed it'd run into what it has. I began this in 1992, and I've added to it every year. And somebody asked me the other day, said, how many buildings you got up there? Well, you'd think I ought to be able to answer them, but I couldn't give them a definite answer. I told them I thought it was maybe 23 or something like that. So I've got them all furnished with things that pertaining to that area. Back in the 1920s, 30s, Depression area. And I've gathered things up to go in the building, from yard sales, flea markets, and antique malls, and had a few items donated to me over the years. But I enjoy what I do here. I enjoy people visiting. I've had people here from all over the United States, really. I've got a visitor's book that most people's written their name in it that's been here, and it's quite interesting to look through that and see the names and the area from where people has come from, and the comments they made in the book, most of them favorable. And I enjoy looking through that book, reviewing who's been here and who hasn't. And sometimes I'll get wrapped up working in this place. Like I say, I enjoy what I do, and I'll work till it gets dark, but I can't see it and have to quit. But I'd say I spend a minimum of 40 hours a week on this place if the weather's fit to be outside. Of course, in the wintertime, I don't get much done here on the place, but I scout around and pick up a few things to go in the buildings. And most of my buildings now are pretty well furnished, and I buy an item, have to move things around to make room to put what I just bought, so that's good. I've got the old garage and service station here, like you'd find along the country roads back in that area, and I have a 1940 Chevrolet parked in that bay there, and over here I've got a 1939 Chevrolet pickup truck. Also in the old car collection, I've got a 1929 Model A Ford, just like my dad bought new in 1929. It's same body style, same color and all. He and Uncle Niles went the same day to the same dealer. Each one of them bought a new Ford, and they were just alike, the cars were. And my dad and Uncle Niles looked pretty much alike, and so they go into town. People see them driving into town, they didn't know whether it's Levi or Niles.
I wonder what those vehicles cost back in that day.
And the cost?
1929.
$510 or something that I had paid for that.
I felt like you'd know.
Yeah. $510.
Yeah.
And of course, cars have gone up a little since then.
Slightly. Yeah.
Now it costs more than that to have a car delivered from the factory to the dealership. But,
now we're here, and this is a unique treasure. I'm ashamed to admit I didn't know it was here. We're in North McKee, just off Sand Lick Road, a mile or two back this side of Camp Andrew Jackson. And like I said, it's Model A Drive. This is Oakwood Acres. This is Travis Sparks' creation. Now the name Oakwood Acres, you were telling us earlier, came from a place that you lived for a very long time. Tell us about Oakwood.
Oakwood was a suburb of Dayton, Ohio. And I didn't live in Oakwood. It was too classy for me. And that was where the up and up people lived. And that's why I named this Oakwood, because it was one of the better communities.
Trip back in time, and I know that Eric's got us looking at some video, but it's every area. This is like a self-sufficient town. You've got a mechanic, and you've got a store, and you've got everything, doctor's office, everything. And it's a simpler time. It reminds you of what life was like 70 or 80 years ago. Like a sign behind us here, gas for 18 cents a gallon. Do you ever get out here working and just get a little swept up in the way things were?
Oh yes, that's how come it's built the way it is. And I can remember those times very, very well.
It was a simpler time, wasn't it?
Oh yes. People worked, I believe, as a whole, they worked a lot harder back then than they do today. Had to make a living, but at the same time, they accepted the situation, and I think people cared more for one another back then than they do today, and they helped each other out. Like a lot of times, farmers would have what they call a working. Say they wanted to clean up a new ground, so to speak. Well, they'd invite the neighbor men in the community. We're going to have working next Thursday, and I would like you to come and help us out. Well, here would come in maybe 15 or 20 men and work on that man's farm that day, and the housewives would cook up one of the biggest dinners that you'd ever hope to see. And that's made it sort of a picnic thing too.
I know when my uncle just passed away, and he had a treasure from our family. He had the dinner bell, and my mother wanted one. I see you pointing. You must have one as well. And
the end of that porch.
People didn't realize that back in the day, if there was a bell that was rang in a neighborhood, and it rang at certain times during the day to signal everyone for food,
yeah.
And if it rang at a time that wasn't a dinner time, you knew there was something wrong, and everyone come running. So, you know, and like you said, people were much more tighter knit. You knew you spent more time with each other. We didn't have the interruptions of the technology and the busyness of life. So now this area here, I mean, you can look at it and you can say, you know, look at the effort, look at the work, look at the time. But you told me something when we first got here that blew me away. You've had no help.
No help whatsoever.
And 40 hours a week pretty much for 20 years?
Yeah. And if the weather favorable, to be outside.
And people, you need not underestimate, if you ever have a chance to come here and see what's been done here, this has been quite the undertaking for you.
Well, so many people that's been here, they just can't believe that I've developed this and built it myself.
I can't either. I mean, because, I mean, to think that one person did all this is remarkable.
I remember how things were, and I just copied what they think were back then.
Now, you had mentioned you've had visitors from different states, but primarily it's just word of mouth, isn't it? Some travels from one person to another, and then they find out you're here.
You know, the last few years, it's been advertised in some of the tourism brochures that put out, and it's been on TV at East Bernstein TV, and I think it was on Lexington TV at one time, and it's been in Lexington newspaper, and of course the local Jackson County Sun had a little story in its time or two.
What would you say is the furthest visitor you recognized from coming down to Kentucky to see Oakwood?
Well, I suppose Norway, Sweden.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Someone from Norway, Sweden.
Oh, I've had from Sweden, Germany, and England. Of course, they didn't come, they didn't leave home with the idea we were going to visit Oakwood Acres.
Right,
they
right.
had business reason, or families in the area, and then they get here and family telling us, go take a tour through Oakwood Acres.
Now, this would appeal to several different age groups because, like you said, when you're out here working, it reminds you of the way things were when you were a boy.
Yeah.
But not only that, but you go to each generation, people in their 70s and 80s, people in their 50s and 60s, all the way down to small children can appreciate this because you know, you're either remembering what life was like when you were a boy, or when your parents, you know, or your grandparents, or even for the children, then they can get an idea of, you know, this was the way it was, and times were simpler, and now electricity-wise, let's see, would it have been close around that time? That I mean, you obviously remember the years when
when Jackson County got the
electricity.
It was 1938, and I think we turned it on about the 4th of July in 1938, and they were dancing in the street in front of the courthouse that night.
You can also remember, you can remember electricity, and you can remember telephone, and you can remember television, and everything that come along, you know. But now this town would have been built really, you know, with the idea of not having any of that, right?
That's right.
And now, looking around us, I mean, I know you said 23 buildings, but I think there's actually probably a little more than that now, isn't there?
Well, maybe 25.
Yeah. But now, when you started this, was this just an open field?
Yeah. And this area here, well, up as far as the end of the old house, this whole area had shumac bushes up shoulder high, all just, I had to cut them all down.
Now, and you think about 25 buildings over 20 years, so you're hitting a little better than a building a year.
Yeah, that's about
And you told me earlier, every nail, every board, you've done yourself.
No help at all. Nobody reaching anything up to me. And I've been fortunate enough, I've not got a scratch. Not a smashed finger, nor no injury at all.
Amazing. Now, have you had groups of all, do you ever have school groups that come by and look at this place, or?
I've had one Jackson County school bus bring some kids here.
That's a shame. And I hope that this PRTC airing is going to fix that, because I know I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I'm going to make it a point to bring them here, because I think a lot of times people, if you don't know from whence you came, you don't really know who you are. And to understand the history, I mean, how many stories are there hanging around here right now as far as the different companies? And I know probably each time you hang a new sign or a new decoration, there's memories laying everywhere.
Well,
you know. Now, we're going to take you inside a couple of the buildings, and first off, we're going to go inside of the garage and mechanic shop here. Take us inside, and I'm going to follow you, and the camera behind me. And
we have here those bottles. Now, that's what's for cheaper oil. This service station would buy their oil in them 50-gallon steel drums with a pump on it, and they'll keep this sitting outside and keep it filled as needs be. And 15 cents a quart. And here we have an old Texaco windshield wiper blade cabinet.
That's what people would get their windshield wiper blades out of.
And I have this car parts over here. I got some penny stand-up scales there in the corner. And World War II poster up there. Uncle Sam pointing his finger at see I don't shoot. And here's an old Chevrolet sign. And I have a tire back here, some of the older tires and wheels on it. And various things in the showcase.
Wow. Every board, every nail, Travis Sparks has put this place together. You are going to be blown away.
And as I mentioned a while ago, about all this lumber come out of an old barn not tore down.
All the lumber from this home?
Yeah.
Yeah. Came from an old barn?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, if anybody's ever torn down a barn, that's quite the undertaking in itself. I've heard people say that taking a barn down can be more difficult than putting it up. Oh, wow.
You know, a fireplace, a rocking chair. We have a telephone on the wall there for your telephone people.
Now, where did this come from?
I got that at the antique mall somewhere.
Now, this is the way the phone used to be, people.
Yeah.
You speak into this and listen through this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So.
And it's and when you want to call somebody, you got to crank your so many short turns and so many long ones.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now, and it also went into usually someone operating a switchboard somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the phone would be no privacy because it would be like a party line because anybody in your area
could pick up and listen
to your conversation. So you didn't say something you didn't want anybody to hear, because and sometimes they'd pick up and say, "Travis, could you get off the phone? I got to call my mom." You know. So there's a phone from back in the day.
And got a bedroom there, and some lady left her purse and shoes and spectacles laying on the bed. Got a baby swing over the bed. And we got a doll cradle here, and an old dresser, and some trunks, and one thing and another.
I mean, the detail is just absolutely amazing.
And I've got an old piano here, over 100-year-old.
Absolutely amazing. So that is probably maybe even a 19th century piano, maybe going back into probably 1800s.
As I go back, I'd say in the late 1800s. That's oldie.
Amazing.
Dining room. You ever got the old ice box before the refrigerators come along? Another bedroom in there. Ladies left the clothes laying around, hanging on the bed.
pictures all over the walls, just like it would have been back in the day.
No dresser over in the corner.
Mm-hmm. Everything that we do now and never think about it. We never think about. I mean, even hopping in a car and driving from where I live in Annville to here was 15, 20 minutes. You know, back in the day would have been half a day.
Oh, well.
You know, and things like ice. The only way you had to keep anything cold because there was no electricity.
The people that couldn't afford an ice box in the country, they would dig them what they call a cellar back in the bank, edge of the yard or somewhere or another. Put milk and bring it over. And they'd also put their canned goods, home canning, for the winter.
A lot of them call it like a warm house or like a.
Call it warm house.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it over into this thing. And this is adjustable like the old washing machine wringer. And run it through this for cookies, biscuits, or pie crust, or whatever. Now, the ordinary family wouldn't have one of these. This is for the boarding house slave plantations.
Everything was from scratch. Everything was by hand. Everything started with raw ingredients. And, you know, now we go out and buy biscuits in bags and rolls but you know, everything took effort and it's a neat time. Like you said, the families were closer knit. They did things together, you know. We're moving on now in Oakwood Acres with Mr. Travis Sparks here into the post office. And you were saying something about back then with post offices, how it was.
You didn't go in and unlock a box and get the mail yourself. The postman had it sorted out alphabetically. All the A families would be in the same cubby hole with a glass over it. Adams, Alexander, Andrews, Adkins. And you'd go in there and see them letters in that cubby hole, and you didn't know if it was your mail or your neighbor's. And the postman would look through it and see if any of it was yours, and if it was, he'd reach it out to you. Packages on. You got smaller scales here to weigh letters on. You got the stamp machines.
Here, over here is some 5-cent stamp machines, 1-cent stamp, and 3-cent stamp.
And then I got a bag of mail there to sort out.
A U.S. mail bag.
I made this when I first built my post office, and then I later come across this. This come out of an old post office. I had to make a base for it, but that come out of the post office. Yeah.
And this would have been probably like the window for the, he'd been back in here, wouldn't he?
The postman would be back
Postmaster
would be back there and talk to him through that.
And then he would go through the cubby hole and get the ones that were yours by your letter.
Right. On the mail letter, or a slot to put it in. Over here, this one's got a slot in this, under that little shelf there. Mail your letters.
Drink Pepsi Cola, a nickel drink worth a dime.
Now go and
5 cents.
do your grocery shopping.
Yeah, okay. Look at this.
Paper bags, ledger books, adding machine, wrapping paper.
This scale would have been for weighing things like what, flour and sugar or what?
Well, mainly coffee, rice, pinto beans. Merchants used to get the rice, pinto beans, and sugar, and all that kind of things in 100-pound bags, and dump it in them cans, and then whatever a customer wanted, or you take a scoop, scoop it up, put it in a paper bag, lay it up on the old scale. Yeah, we got various items in the showcase there, some old, some new. A few toys around the top.
What blows me away is one person did all this, and that person was you.
Who was on job?
I mean, the time it would have taken to have done all this.
Build it and furnish it and all that.
Amazing.
That showcase come out of Haltom's drugstore at McKee.
And that's the way the old showcases would have looked.
Yeah.
King Edward cigars, now 2 for a nickel.
A few days ago.
Yeah.
There was that P&G soap. That was, if the housewife didn't make her own soap, That was the main laundry soap in this area back then, P&G, Procter and Gamble. There's a plate got some of the homemade soap in it now.
And that would have been what, lye soap?
Lye soap,
Yep. That was the sound everybody heard when it was time for church.
You got a speaker waiting for us.
A speaker waiting for us. Oh, I think I recognize him. And once you see who he is, he's got a little more time on his hands now than he did have.
Yeah, that's the kind of benches that they had back years ago, and not be as comfortable as the cushioned benches today, but you didn't go to sleep so easily sitting on these.
That didn't have the padded seats or the comfort of probably heating your air.
That's just the kind of benches they had. And all the churches in this area had a shelf across the front, such as this, kerosene lamp on it. They also had these hanging wall lamps.
And this probably would have been pretty close in size as well to a regular old country church, wouldn't it? Yeah. Seats.
Pump organ here, places here to set your lamps in the shelf.
People can't imagine that there was one-room schoolhouses, and that's all there was.
One teacher, usually 25 or 30 kids.
And all of them at different age levels?
Oh yeah, from primer on up through 8th grade. There's my visitor's book. Write your names on there, if you will, in that visitor's book. And
visitor's book here at the...
call them there for comments, good or bad. Yeah, I got some books here. It goes back into the, like 18 and 80, 18 and 90. Over 100-year-old.
Now, and people, you could bring groups here and spend an entire day. I mean, Travis Sparks here has got stories about how things were back in the day, and this is a place you could spend an entire day and go in. Now, I'm assuming each building you can go in, right?
Oh yes. Yes. Each one's furnished what should be on that particular one.
You didn't stop on the outside, did you?
No.
Yeah. You made it look like it's supposed to on the inside as well.
Yeah, and I say I have a picnic shelter up on the hill, at the end of my yard up there, seat 50 or 60 people. And I've had church groups, senior citizen groups, and family groups, and all that to come and carry in dinner and eat up there and take a tour of the buildings. And most of the time when I have a group that way, they sit down in the church, sing a song or two, and if the pastor's present, with them, he'd get up and make maybe a 5-minute talk. So everybody enjoys that.
People always, this is an undiscovered treasure. People always, we have things like Flatlick Falls and different things here in Jackson County, but this is something we just didn't know it was here. And if you guys would come and just check this out, what amazes me is just the work and the detail that's gone into something like this. I mean, you've had to pretty well spend, 6-7 months a year, like a full-time job for 20 years.
Yeah.
Everything that's been done here is taking effort and work, and you're still adding to it. And like you said, you really don't see an end to it, do you?
No end to it, but I enjoy every bit of it.
As long as you're able to do it, you're going to do it.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So if groups wanted to come out and so just give you a call.
Yeah, just give me a call, so I'll sure be here. Like I say, sometimes people driving by will stop, see me down there, and they're welcome. And anytime I'm here, so I'll give them a tour.
Travis, we appreciate you joining us for this time on PRTC. It's been a pleasure meeting you. It's been a pleasure coming by and seeing all this, and hopefully we can get some Jackson County groups to come your way.
Anytime.
It says for a little bit of history and country, out in the country. So this is a nostalgic trip back in time and something that everybody needs to see, and we appreciate you all joining us here on PRTC.